Hello everyone, it's Dom here from Esports Ne0kai, back at Insomnia. I always do these Insomnia videos. I have a bit more limited time. Thank you for waiting outside for me.
No worries.
But I'm joined by two of the casters from the Valorant Women's Cup, which is really cool, like £10,000 new tournament we've got here, and we've had the winners of that. We'll be talking about that. Ne0kai and Winteriio. There's multiple ways to say your name, right? I haven't spoken to you before. So tell us a bit about yourselves to begin with and how it's been, you know, here at Insomnia.
I'm from Wales. I started in Siege. I did a few like T4, T3 stuff and then moved over into Valorant. I used to compete in Game Changers. And then from that I decided to give up the competing and go more into the broadcast talent. Wow. I've done stuff with CS as well, most recently the Impact qualifications. And hopefully we'll be seeing me on the NA Impact stream as well in the next couple of weeks.
Let's chat about them in a bit as well. And Neo, you're similar, right? You CS background, but also doing Valorant.
Yeah, I mean, I started in CSGO kind of during COVID, and I didn't ever think about being talent. It was kind of like a bit of a joke, basically, with my friends, and it came out of nowhere, and it's gone very quickly, very uphill. But yeah, I mean, starting CSGO, when Valorant came out, I started really early doing a bunch of beta things, which is with friends, like doing it for my university, doing like NUEL, NSC, like really early on, because I was at university myself. And then, yeah, slowly started getting in, and when Polaris started, kind of the qualification, I got brought into the first season, and I've worked kind of every one since. So it's cool. I always try and do as much Valorant as I can, but it's obviously a lot more limited, especially now with off season, where there's not a lot going around.
It's funny, when Valorant came out, people were saying, oh, is this gonna, you know, hinder CS? And I think for a bit it might have done, because you had some pro players switching over. But now we're at this middle point where we've got CS2 about to come out, like the full launch. And there's a real nice crossover between talent and so on.
I think they help each other, right? I think I'm one of those people who believes that competition makes everything better, and I think that's the case. I think, to be honest, I think Valve and Counterfeit got a bit of a kick up the arse when they saw how well Valorant was doing, and of course, probably the other way, they got a real kick up the arse about how well the women's team was doing, because Riot and Valorant spent a lot of time and effort really making that as big of a product as it was, and really putting as much effort in, and that really spurred on the likes of Impact starting and being kind of as big as it is now. So I think they've really helped all parts of the scene grow. And they're just helping each other. When one does better, the other has to match it. So both games are going to keep going up.
Did you have a background in CS, Winter, or have you gone into Valorant and now you're doing casting CS as well?
I started in Valorant, but I started in Siege. Like, first off, it was like in COVID. I literally didn't know what gaming was. As bad as it sounded, I thought gaming was like the Wii. And I know that sounds so stupid for some of the people, for some of the people that had been playing CS for like over a decade, and I'm just there like, guys, I have like 400 hours. And it's just kind of like, I've kind of like gone into it and like grinded through Valorant, come from being like top Immortal 3 player in Valorant over into CS. So I've got the general gun skill, but trying to learn a new game has been so hard as well. But having that skill, and then obviously the background of casting in Val has kind of helped with CS. And I've got so many like people around me that know CS so much, like Neo, Retro, even some of pro players I'm friends with. They've just like why have they done this? Like, wouldn't in Valorant you'd see something completely different? Like the save-in meta in CS was so hard for me to get my head around, because like you wouldn't see that in Valorant. It's like you see if it was a 2v2 you'd go for it. If it's a 3v2 you'd go for it. But then you talk about like Inferno, 2v2, 4v2, 3v2, you don't even go for those things, which is it's cool. But then talking about your point here about the female scene, with Riot being able to set up Game Changers from the first competition year, I think that really helped like the Valorant scene because it's not as if with Impact, from my understanding, it was a later thought. And again, CS has been around for ages, and it hasn't been the forefront of women and non-binary competing and marginalized genders and stuff like that. But obviously Riot already having like similar leagues in League itself, being able to put that right at the start of Riot, of Valorant as well, has really helped the scene grow, not only with the casual players but the female scene, and then tying in with Impact, give Valve a bit of a kick up the arse to get Impact back up. And
you're spot on with that, but I want to give a shout out to IEM as well, because they used to do the IEM challenge Unfortunately it stopped. I don't know why it stopped, you know, but that was good.
Luckily,
but it was just
Katowice now, right? And that's the thing which is really good. Like, every year, and I think this year especially, Katowice was on at the same time as the kind of the main event, quotes unquote. So all the people that were there, they actually didn't clash as much. So people could watch both the kind of I guess you call it the normal tournament, which they would go out to watch, but also again go watch the women's tournament too and Impact. It was good. So I think this year, especially the viewership for Impact for Katowice, I remember watching it, and Lucy and Brandon doing the final and stuff. They had good numbers at that final because people could drift through, watch a bit of the last day, and then go on to the final. So they planned it really well. So I think ESL and IM did a really good job making sure that like it really gets the same sort of level of attention, and hopefully next year as well. I'd love to see something like. Especially, I mean, this year we had a show match just before the final. It'd be cool to see something like the women's final played just before, the Impact final played just before the kind of like the main event in a way, and then have it as a forerunner, right? You start at midday for the Impact final, then go in towards the main one. That'd be cool. Rather, show matches are show matches. We've seen them, we've done them all. That'd be really cool. It's like a really good way, and then you could do it in the main arena, right? And you get the same level of viewership. So that'd be something cool. But I think that we're still in a very infant stage of Impact, where again, because Riot has really come in, all guns blazing, the content's amazing too. I think that's probably where CS lacks a little bit. Once we start leveling up the content, probably kind of from a top level down, that's when things are going to start being really good.
Right, showed the views are there as well. Exactly. I'll be honest, I was a little bit surprised Game Changer some of the views, because historically the women's tournaments haven't had lots of views, and Game Changer showed you could have that. And talking about Impact, so you're working on Impact. Are you doing stuff on Impact as well?
I am.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, I've done my research. It was all a bit last minute here, but we've got a UK player and an Irish player. You informed me about the Irish player, but I think it's AIM, the women's CS UK player, and then we've got an Irish player as well. So that's cool for me from an Esports News UK perspective. I sometimes get press releases about events, and we don't have many UK players, so that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, AIM is talented, right? I think she's been around for quite a while. I've watched streams in the past. It's her playing with, Borup, who now plays on Australis. She knows him very, very well. I think, I don't know, quote me if I'm wrong here, I'm pretty sure they're dating. I'm pretty sure. So, the streams get playing, level 10 Facer, and she's always been cracked, right? And I always wondered whether it was something she'd go into, and it took a while, but now playing at a good level, and we've seen kind of in some of the quals coming through and what she's played in some of the kind of more official games, she looks talented, really, really good. I'd love to see something like a few more UK players then see this opportunity and realise, well, why don't I give it a go, right? The open quals are very, very good to get in through. And I think it's the start of a new wave. Of course, we're always talking about the UK scene, especially at the moment, just after the Paris Major, with Interbreach doing so well. Just like, the Raptors win at ESL Prem, another team. So it'd be really cool to see both scenes start to take off. We've now got kind of a UK scene doing pretty damn well and keeping some good players. And now we're starting to have Mia come through as well. It'd be awesome to see kind of both sides.
Positive, isn't it? So I called her AIM. But is it Mia or is
so Mia's her first name and AIM is her in-game.
That is going to confuse me. That is going to confuse me.
Right? Just flip it around.
I like it. One thing I wanted to ask you, Winter, is your background as a player. Because I've seen that, people like in League of Legends, Cadril was a pro player. And then he transitioned really well into being an analyst and a caster. And he's done so well with that. But then also you do see people doing well, not coming from a playing background, like the likes of Yinsu Collins, hasn't played at that level, but has gone from journalist to host. What's that been like? Why did you make the switch as well?
I think I just got to the point where I work a 9 to 5 anyway, and I work in finance full time, and being on a team, scrimming, so wake up 7 o'clock, do work 9 to 5, have food, back on for scrims at 6 to 10. It's like working like a double shift basically, and then also alongside doing my apprenticeship exams for my accounting degree, it's kind of like it got to the point where I couldn't cope, and for me and the team that I was playing on at the time, it was best for me to step back, and they did amazing. Like some of the players have gone on to play on KPI Shine, some have even gone on to Eternal Fire as well with Athena. She's been one of the most cracked Turkish players I've played with as well, and it was kind of like I've always been the IGL, the more paced player inside teams. I'm not like the entry dealers. I'm not some like AIM superstar. I'm more the one who thinks, basically. So transferring that into color casting was quite easy for me. It's because the way I approach it is more like from the launder's kind of perspective. I'm not very hybrid, and like I'm aware of that. I'm not very good with words when it's like so much happening on the screen and stuff like that, but I can break it down quite quickly and quite easily. And again, it comes from the role of IGL. I can look at a situation and be like, okay, this would be great, or they've got these ults, this is probably what they're going to want to do from it. And I feel like being able to bring that onto a broadcast and not dumb it down per se, but have it for the general audience, because realistically the plays we're watching are like top Radiant, top Immortal players, and you have sort of like a plat audience, and to be able to break down something as complex as you see on your screen to like, oh, they might understand that. It's quite like, oh, this is happening because of this, rather than, oh my god, all this is happening on my screen. Especially with Valorant compared to CS, there's a lot more abilities and counterplays. I feel is like messy compared to CS. It's like, oh, one smoke here, that's can be it sometimes for CS. And being able to break that down for Valorant is something that I've gotten used to, trying to explain to even some of my teammates as well. Just setting up like protocols when we're inside the team, so being able to break that down on the spot for the viewers as well, it's kind of like hand in hand. Yeah,
it helps me. I don't play Valorant or CS. I used to a little bit, but it helps me, you know, that breaking that down. Some people criticise casters, I find, but it's like, oh, you didn't have a high enough level of knowledge, oh, you didn't say this and that. It's like, I like simple casting. Break it down to as simple as possible, like I'm a baby. You know,
there's definitely like I think Valorant gets it a lot worse. I've seen it. I've having like had conversations, especially with people like at the upper level. I speak with Mitch and Tom every now and again. I worked at a couple of events in the past with them. They're super lovely guys. I remember having a conversation with them about it, and they were saying kind of, obviously for both of them who've worked in CSGO and then moved over towards Valorant too, they get it a lot more in Val, where not those guys specifically, but generally where it's like, oh, well, you know, if you're not Radiant, then how are you an analyst or how are you a color caster? Which is like, I mean, realistically, just a moronic take. Like, it just is like, just because I can't click the mouse the same doesn't mean I don't understand the game the same, right? Because also when you look towards coaches, there's coaches who have not been pro players who are some of the best, right? And that's the thing. I think it's all about kind of how you understand and break down the game, especially at that sort of level. So I think Valorant gets a lot worse. You don't really get it as much in CS. I don't really see it as much anyway. But also helps that we do have a lot of heavy kind of ex-pro or ex kind of coach broadcast talent when it comes towards the analysts and kind of colour cast roles, but even the ones that don't, you know, I mean, I always think about Hugo, right? I think in my opinion, one of the best colour casters we've got within Counter-Strike, and you know, doesn't have a pro playing career. He's pretty good, he's level 10, so he's played a good level, but he's never a pro, never like kind of for him. But yeah, I mean, he's one of the best we have in my opinion. So I always think like those kind of things.
Yeah, I've got to ask about the Valorant Women's Cup. We've been talking about Valorant and CS. You've been casting the Valorant Women's Cup today. So you were the two casters, and then you also had Twiggy and Billy as well doing admin.
So Billy did the desk, and we, as a three, we rotated. So me and Summer did the first game, which was the lower bracket final, and then Twiggy and Summer did the grand final, and I did the desk with Billy. So like we would just rotate essentially.
Yeah. I should have said that as well. So we've been talking about Mia and AIM.
Yeah.
So Jack told me earlier your name is Summer as well, so you've got the summer and winter thing. So it's opposites. You're going to confuse me, you know.
That's, I mean, any season's okay. Any pronunciation of Winteriio, anything. I answer to just like, oh, you, okay, hi. What can I do?
Unfortunately, I missed the women's cup. I saw part of the semi-final. What was that like? I don't even know. Tell me who won and what it was like to be a part of and how it went.
So in the lower finals, it was Escaped the Kitchen that won. So with this tournament, it was quite late.
Good land name.
It is, and it's like mixed tournament. It's a mixed team basically for this tournament, and the ones that actually won it was Michelle's Kittens. And honestly, it was such a dominant showing in the grand finals. It was a 13-3, 13-3. Yeah. That it's just kind of like crazy how well they played together. Bear in mind, they're not a team either. They're all played on teams previously, they're all on different teams currently, but coming into the LAN, they've just dominated. It's the first LAN for some of them as well, and their first time on stage on the grand final as well, because they came through the upper bracket, and it was only the lower bracket and the grand that was on stage. And well, Escape the Kitchen, best LAN name, but
I should put that in headline.
Best
like that is
picture as well. I like that. Their team picture is incredible. It's
fire and like a knife and fork in the flames. It's amazing.
And the undertones of that, obviously I don't need to go into the context of it, but I like that because it's a bit of a jokey response. An FU basically, which I really like, and it's a good land name, so I'll have to mention that. So they got to the final, did they? Escape the Kitchen.
They got to the finals. They had a really good lower bracket finals game that I think, like you were saying earlier, the semi-finals or lower bracket finals seem to be better than the finals sometimes.
General aura that occasionally semi-finals are better than finals, and like is a thought process you have to go into. Especially I know, like speaking to some of the kind of top talent, they're always like, oh man, sometimes if the bracket ends up the way we think it might, you know, if a number one seed maybe goes number 2 in group something, they then go into a different side of the bracket, and you can have a banging semi-final. And that's what we got. I think Cleek were really good. They were very evenly matched. Went all 3 maps with a distance all 3 maps as well. Yeah. So it was very very good. unfortunately not the same until the final. There was realistically it was just a skill difference. You could just tell, like mechanically so much better, but the way they kind of approached the game, they were so good at setting the tempo. Michelle's Kittens, and it just really wasn't too much of a competition. But
so they won the Michelle's Kittens.
Yeah, and they played actually already in the upper bracket previously, just yesterday, and that was a little bit more even. It was OT in 2 different maps and a 13-3 to finish it off. But there was OT across 2 maps, so it was a closer game, but not the same here. On the stage, I guess when it matters most, when money on the line, and of course the kind of respect and all the revere and stuff, they were just unstoppable.
Yeah. So Cooke Esports, you've just reminded me. Sorry, George, I forgot to meet you at Insomnia. He was telling me because they had a team. They've got a women's team. They've got 2 teams. Yeah. So Cooke, I guess, did they finish third overall? Yeah, and they're still going in. They're actually playing right now in the Open tournament, and I think they're 1 map up at the moment. Yeah. So I want to. In the Open, I want to talk to you about something there, because this has just popped into my head saying this about Cooke. They've got 2 teams, and I was careful with my wording because I got into a bit of trouble recently on social media because I had a press release from Guild Esports saying Guild Esports announces men's CSGO, men's CS team, right? So hey, I'll hold my hands up. Sometimes I get press releases and I don't think too much of the headline. I will use the headline, I'll tweak it very slightly, and I've run it. And then I posted it, and I went and did some other things. I think I had to look after my kids for a bit. And then when I came back, I was like, uh-oh. And I had people from, I had Ashley from the Game Changers saying, oh, you need to call this out and stuff. I was like, uh-oh. And I had other journalists DMing me saying, oh, we've had a similar thing. So I changed the headline to announce this second team. The other publications that I was talking to didn't change that. But I did have an interesting chat with one of the journalists. I won't name names, but they were saying to me, but Dom, it is a men's team. What they're announcing. We don't know that for sure, and I do understand that esports is mixed, right? So, but people were right to say, how do you know they're all men? You don't know because you don't know what the roster is. If they'd announced the roster, then I can say it's men's team. If they're all 5 are men. So I'm interested to hear your views on that, because I didn't know what to say then with Cooke. They have a men's team and a women's team, or should it be? But then if you say first team and a women's team, is that a bit derogatory to women?
This is the thing as well, that I think generally within like CS, for example, some people refer to it as kind of the main tournament, but then it isn't the main. So there's 2 separate tournaments, right? So it is kind of like, what do you like? I was in this conversation the other day.
I don't know what to call it then.
What do you call, like? So, for example, like if Na'Vi are playing Liquid and Simple or whatever, what do I call that tournament, right? Because I don't want to say, because Na'Vi have an incredible women's team as well, right? Who the Javelins are one of the best teams, and realistically, I genuinely think the Javelins could win this season. That's how good they are. But then, how do you kind of differentiate? I mean, it's one of those things that
semantics and it's wording, but it's important underlying stuff as well.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where when it comes down to, for me, it all comes down to intentions. Like, is the way, if you're saying it as a way of clarification, I don't think it's an issue, but if it's an intention of like bad intent, then of course call out for it. And I think obviously yours felt no bad intent at all. It was just, I
like to think I'm someone that's an advocate of women's esports. It's important and all of that.
Freudian slip, right? Isn't that what they call it? So one of the,
something like that. But I'm keen to get your views, Winter. Obviously,
I think it's. Yeah, I think it's very different when, and I'm not saying you guys are ignoring the whole fact of women's issues within esports. It's just more if you haven't actually had to experience it, so it's not something that crosses your mind. Like when you see it, that's like, oh yeah, it is a men's team, right? It's realistically, like you said, it has come out as an all men's team, and like statistically, if you're looking at it, the likelihood of it would be almost 99% there is going to be all men. But I think it's the way when you're saying it's just for clarification and stuff like that, is we have to battle to even get the recognition to be allowed our own tournaments, to have that sort of ecosystem where we can thrive, where we can learn against each other, have the experience within a team. Like in Valorant now, we have DD from Rebels is one of the subs for the main team in VLR, but she also plays on the Game Changers team for Rebels, so Rebels Violet. And I think that's an amazing step for female, like
it should be about integrating the both together, and I think that's what the great thing about, I think Game Jam especially does it really well, where you can actually then start to integrate both together. And we've seen, I mean, even now I think the big thing is like seeing individuals like Potter, right? Like how Potter, Potter's done coming in. I mean, you all saw the bullshit right at the start when Potter got brought onto EG, and we know many people who came were very vocal, but especially people with big platforms who were very vocal, especially when they lost the first few games, right? look at now, best team we've got playing at the moment, recent champions in LA, and that's what it's all about, right? I think it is starting to show that there is going to be integration, and that's, I mean, that is the end goal, right? Have it all at the same level. So, and hopefully Impact does the same thing in CSGO, or CS2, I guess.
Yeah.
I know there's been comments about not wanting to necessarily grow the game changer scene. I think it was done by Leo like months ago that he didn't want to grow the game changer scene anymore, didn't want to increase prize pools because he wanted it to be sort of capped realistically and be a bridge for these players to make it into those VRL teams like DD has done for Rebels. But when you're talking about the general tournaments, you can say the main tournaments because rather than the men's or anything like that, because from at least my perspective and people around me that are women or marginalized genders, is it makes it sound like we aren't invited or aren't welcome for those tournaments. And I know like even journalists or when people make these passing comments that's not the intention at all. No. And I don't harbor any bad will against anyone who does say it at all, because it's not something realistically, they're probably guys who've said it, and it's not something that's crossed their mind when they said it, because it is a men's team, but it's not a men's tournament. Yes, there might be a majority of men competing in that tournament, but say the tournament now at Valorant here, some of the women's teams would have competed in the open tournament, but because they've had this separate one, they can play in there, they have less, realistically, sexism, less prejudice in there when they're going to compete in it compared to that of the main tournament. Because like realistically, from my own experience and like watching my friends play, it's always a barrier to try and get into these tournaments, even though they are the open tournaments, even though it's free to sign up, as everyone plays in groups, everyone plays, realistically gets to playoffs as well, with when some of the numbers are so low at these events. And it's just having that wording there makes it feel like there's another barrier we have to get through, because there's already the general idea that women aren't good or women aren't as good, and having the wording barrier again on top and being on the publications like you said, or on comments being like, oh, it's male team and male tournament, it just feels like it's an uphill battle, and when it should be kind of the opposite. Like everything's getting better for women CS, women Valorant, Impact, game changers, and then having the kind of extra thing on top, that's when someone does accidentally or purposefully do it, then it just feels like there's another battle to be won.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I could make an interesting article out of all of this stuff as well. You know, can I have some more time, please? So I just got to clone myself or something. It's been a pleasure talking to you both. I know you've given me a lot of your time. Is there anything else you would like to add? Any shout outs or anything I've missed?
I mean, shout out Insomnia for bringing us out. It's been good. We got, of course, more tomorrow as well with the open tournament. So we're back for day 2. But
now, you might not tell me because you're casters, but has there been any issues? I haven't been on Twitter or X much. Those issues from a year and a half ago.
I'm not changing it to X. It's Twitter and mine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tweet.
Exactly.
They're tweets. They're not X posts.
They've changed it. They've made it to post now.
I
So like when you press the send, it's like posted, not
like
tweeted.
That.
No.
I don't know. I'm not a fan. But
I feel like I'm too old to like want the change. I'm like, my brain is like, no, it's not right.
Change it. And all those other sites out there that will have little Twitter icons. It's going to take ages for sites to. I haven't changed mine on Esports News UK yet.
Exactly.
You know, anything else you want to add?
I mean, you just saying something about issues. Was that what you were asking?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to ask. I haven't seen anything, but I know there's always, the CS crowd vocal if there's any like server issues and that.
No.
But has it been okay on the Valorant side as well here?
I mean, for CS, obviously we finished now for the Premiership. I mean, thankfully, actually really smooth. There was only one random issue which was completely out of their hands, where like a PC had like auto reset or something. It got fixed within 10 minutes. It was really simple. So everything ran smoothly. I think obviously there's been quite a lot of people vocal about just Premiership in general, where the sense of, how it ran here was 4 teams made it through the closed qualifiers, 4 separate closed qualifiers. So 4 teams here, they were the big hitters, we're talking Endpoint, Raptors, Verdant, X, Coalesce. They all made it through the closed quals. And then the other 4 came through the closed qualifier, which is here. And there's a world in which happened to some people, they played 3 best of 3s and they lost, and that was their day done. They didn't make it to the playoffs, and that was the tournament done for them. They entered into the Inters tournament. But there was a lot of people very vocal on Twitter saying like, oh, you know, complaining about individuals who got to the quarterfinals who were, you know, level 1 on Face It and had not played CS before, and Endpoint obviously they 32. Yeah, 32. And it's one of those things I saw people very vocal saying like, oh, you know, this is like look at it. Yeah, I did. Yeah. And it was like, I haven't seen that. The thing just saying like, oh, look at all this, but then I always find it super ironic, and maybe this is me coming from a different point because obviously we get hired for these events. So people who are so like complaining and saying, okay, these level 1s have just walked away with over $1,000 in prize pool and a HLTV, and it's like, you're saying that from home. Why don't you come? If you're complaining, why don't you enter? It's like they always complain, oh, 170 quid a ticket. It's 1,000 prize pool for top 8. If you're so good, why aren't you here? This
was a bigger one with the CS Premland than previous Insomnias, I guess.
Yeah. So I don't know. For me, I always find the people who complain, but from home when they didn't turn up themselves, and it's like complaining like, oh, why these level 1s getting 1,000 prize pool? Like that should have been you. It's 170 quid a ticket, which is a lot. And I'm not going to complain that it is a lot. I mean, because especially when we compare Epic Land, which is because I think a little bit more popular in the kind of the CS crowd, and rightfully so. You know, it's a much smaller like cost a ticket. I think it's about 75, 80 quid. I think in total. So.
As well, like compared to obviously Insomnia is a lot bigger in the sense of
it is bigger, the expo and all that.
And the cost of generally Insomnia that they have to recuperate, but it's just kind of like Epic's like the home ground, I feel, of UKCS rather than Insomnia. I feel Valorant numbers are kind of less here, not necessarily because of the price, because a lot of these teams get like org backing as well, whether that's just for the ticket and like a B&B for everyone. But with Epic, there's always, well, other than the Summer Epic, beacon points on the line, which comes into the grassroots esports of, it's sort of like ESL Prem but Valorant.
Yeah, they lost that beacon, haven't they? I think
they
for
lost
the next
it as next year. For the first time it's not. So that is going to actually be a bit of a change. I wonder what the numbers are going to be like next year. But yeah, the CS, that was the main thing where people complaining, saying about like level 1s getting the prize pool, because they spread the prize pool across top 8, which is, it was normally a little bit more top heavy, more kind of top 4 getting the bulk of it, and then anyone outside like 5th to 8th I don't think even got anything last season. But it's a good thing to have more teams in the prize pool, and I mean credit especially when these changes are coming through from guys at the top who are more likely to get the prize pool, but they want it to be spread more evenly. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like the guys complain from home, it's just like, why don't you show up is where I'm going to say. And until I get a legitimate reason, I've read through all of the tweets, I've seen all the big hitters, and you all know who I'm talking about at home, any of the UKCS guys. I'm always going to sit here and say, like, maybe you know, slightly tone deaf of me, you can even say, but why don't you come? If it's such a big deal and you complain about everyone's getting Face It, why aren't you here?
That's interesting. I think there's an interesting clip in that, Ne0. I hope I don't get any criticism coming. What was I going to say? Just shout out, by the way, to Raptors, who beat Endpoint in the final. Obviously, I don't know Raptors very well. I know Endpoint pretty well, but that was good to see, you know, a different team winning.
Yeah, Renjot from MMS as well, because I mean, he took down his old ex-Viperio core in the semis to get to the final, and then obviously going in towards the final. I was speaking to...
That was Verdant, wasn't it?
Yeah, Verdant, yeah. And then obviously the ex-Viperio core who was at the RMR, where he gets dropped after the RMR, and he beats them in the semis. And obviously going in towards everybody spoke about, Verdant Endpoint final is fine. Endpoint went 2-0. That was always the conversation. There was never... Raptors was never even in... Or I said Raptors, they've changed now. It's not even Arctic. But Raptors was never in the conversation. Yeah. And man, this team's really good. I mean, they Awaken, in my opinion, most consistent player across LAN. As he put up great stats, but if you're not winning the matches, in my eyes, you can't be the MVP. And Awaken, I think, was the one for me. He was just incredible. Bulgarian, a bit of an import, but incredible talent. And I spoke to the guys afterwards. I even spoke to them before the game, and they were like, we're just happy to be here. Like, we're on a LAN final, ESL Prem. Even if we get second place, we're happy to be here. I spoke to MMS. He was like, all I cared about was beating Verdant. That's literally it. And after that, like, I'm happy. So I'm at a final. And then he goes on to pull off one of the most, probably the best final in Premiership history. I mean, obviously, there's kind of bias coming from me, but I spoke to some of the admins who've been working this for 10 years. They said, probably the best final we've had in the last at least kind of 5-6 years. And one definitely that will be remembered for a long, long time. And now Raptors represent the UK at the ESL Pro League National Championships.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Is that coming through winning? Because this is, I keep forgetting, this isn't Insomnia Open, this is CS Prem. So there wasn't a CS Open. Well, I'm guessing there was an intermediate maybe.
There was actually it's on actually right now. The finals are playing as we speak. But yeah, it's good. I mean, it's cool to see a new team. Into the Breach from last season, I covered the whole national championships, and they just were awful. Basically, they were like in the middle of their roster changes. They'd lost Kai and Volt.
Really hit them, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They were in a rough spot with subs and all the rest, and this is kind of...
And then people making distasteful jokes and then getting booted off the roster.
Exactly, and he was playing pretty badly as well. So it's one of those situations where Into the Breach just didn't show up for us at all. They played awfully, and they lost to Daniel Eckler in their bracket. But there's some good teams. It's a good opportunity. I think Raptors, they should probably go into this not expecting to make it through. I mean, go through that and they go to Pro League, which is like nuts. So the potential is insane. It's highly
Endpoint have done it, haven't they, in Pro League for a little bit?
There's some decent teams though. I mean, so through Turkey, Eternal Fire win it every season. So you're playing against Woxic, Nontaras, those guys. B&E win the Adriatic League pretty much every season as well. So you've got big heavy hitters, top, operational tier 2, tier 1.5 team. So I think regardless, it's just a massive kind of thing for them to say, like, I played an official for a Pro League spot against Eternal Fire. So
I think it's kind of nice that even though obviously Into the Breach won the most recent Prem, not the one that like finished last night, but everyone, like you said, everyone was expecting, well, Endpoint to be, okay, Into the Breach is gone, no longer UK, we're going to get the crown back. Like they'd been, 10 seasons in a row, I think it was. Lost it to ITB. ITB's out of the picture now, and I think, well, it was their finals to lose, and seeing Raptors get it as well, it's kind of like, it's nice to see that bit of a mix up, not going back to the same old of Endpoint winning all the time.
I know I've said it's been great talking to you. I said that about 10 minutes ago, but it has. You've given me so many amazing, like, I could do a whole thread of clips, of things and headlines, and the knowledge you've got is amazing to talk to you. I expect to see, we've got such great, like, broadcast talent from the UK. It's publishers have got it good. The pool to choose from, so I'm sure I'll see you on more tournaments.
With how good we've got it at the top, I mean, even like CS and Val, I mean, the operational vast majority of them are from the UK. It's good inspiration, but also all of them are really easy to talk to. I mean, I know for me, like Harry and Hugo, working the RMR with them and just getting advice from them, just simple things, just sitting having a drink and just being like, what do I do next? Where do I go from here? That's sick. And I think so far I've not ever felt unwelcomed as I start to climb through both Valorant and CSGO. Like, we've got some of the best talent, not only in terms of their ability, but also their personality, how they help out. So it really makes it a very easy scene to work with him, because you never just feel under any kind of pressure, which I've heard other scenes, it's a little bit more cutthroat and a little bit more backstabby. I've never felt that at all within the UK. So it's good. We've got some of the best for just how they can help out the young guys, and they're so happy to do so as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Contest to that. Like when I was in Cologne, I obviously only went as just sort of an avid fan, hanging out with like Lucy and Brandon, like casters of impact basically. Lucy even did Pro League last season, and just like even partying with Harry and Hugo, they were just so nice and so welcoming. And I think this was a conversation we had on Instagram after we left Cologne, and it was like, I think I mentioned like, thank you for being so nice, because from my experience, like it's not even as like a girl in esports, it's just as like a younger talent coming later into the scene compared to some people that have been in esports for a while, been casting for a while, and have only just moved to Valorant. They kind of still have that pedigree of esports, and literally just messaged him, thank you for being so nice, and he was like, yeah, I understand how it can be. We've had casters in the past be so gatekeeping and just so toxic to the newcomers, whether that's because they're scared that they'd be better or just don't want to be involved with like newer talent or want to help out. But honestly, Harry and Hugo are probably like my favorite casters that I only know in the professional manner. Like obviously Lucy and B-Dog, I'm like really good friends with them, like on a personal one, but Harry, Hugo, they gave so much nice advice as well, just general, you're a nice person, you're going to do good, or just be nice, don't try and stamp over people to get jobs, because that's just not going to get you very far, kind of thing. And it's so nice that, especially with the top CS talent, it's kind of like a family now, and you can see that on Pro League and how well everybody gets along with all the jokes, and I think that's what we need more in general esports.
Luckily, Val was pretty similar as well. Tom and Mitch have been huge to me. I had a worked event last October with them, Blast Fight Nations, and it was pretty daunting because it was a big step up for me in Valorant. It's like all tier 1 talent on that, and then me. So I felt like there's a world in which you can feel like a kind of a small fish in a big tank kind of thing. You
guys deserve, you deserve to be there. To be honest, it's a tough, like I say, we've got so many good casters and things here, but then there's only so much room at that top level.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when there is so fine margins in terms of how many jobs, like people like Tom and Mitch was super helpful to me. I remember at the start of the year when the new circuit was all starting and it was all a little bit up in the air, no one knew what was going on. Just speaking with Tom and just being like, where do I go from here? What conversations do I have with people like Riot, for example? It's so helpful, and just having someone like that they can reach out to at any time is always.
That's half the
massive.
battle, right? And for people coming up through grassroots and things, we don't have agents and things. I'm sure the likes of K-Draw and all of that in League Elite, they do have. I'm pretty sure he does have an agency, Medic and people like that. But then it's coming up through that and through those ranks. Do you have?
I have an agent.
Oh, you do? Yeah, it helps.
I just recently, only signed in the last kind of couple of months. Yeah, so I've got same agent as me, Banks, and Maniac. It's
I don't know Maniac that well, but Banks.
Yeah, Banks. Another great guy. I just worked a 2-week gig in Romania with Banks, and another guy from the UK who's just like super
I really
cool.
value those tier 1 talents and players that make time for little old me to talk, and Banks is one of them. He'll DM me about all kinds of stuff, and I appreciate that.
He's one of the funniest dudes ever. I just find Banks hilarious. Just speak to him about anything, and he's makes. I should recently be playing a lot of CS2 with Banks, and he's just cool. It's because he's so connected. It's me, Banks, then it's Devil Walk and Rigon, B&E guys. So it's pretty cool. Banks is he's a good guy. He's been really helpful, and then since then as well, he's even saying help me out with other TOs, which is something again which feels like
that help is a key word. Yeah. He helps people, and there are certain people in the industry that do. But I said, is there anything else you'd like to add about 15 minutes ago? Is there anything else you'd like to add as well?
I'm just happy that there has been a women's Valorant tournament. It's just one off. It's not connected to Game Changers, and the prize pool is kind of so similar to the main Game Changers tournaments. For having something one off like this, it'd be nice if it can happen again, and maybe a little bit more notice time for some of these teams, because I know I would have competed in it, put mixed together for my friends, but it was basically so late notice that couldn't get a team together, already set out to cast it. And then with looking at the actual Game Changers team, because it's not clashing with any of the schedules, they can just fly in, because again, Insomnia is so close to the airport, easy to do, and some of the bigger teams it's a $5,000 for the winners. You can see some possibly KPI coming in from Spain. Some of the closer European teams doesn't always have to be just a UK team, because we've had, I think, 3 people have flown over to compete, and some of them have been borrowing PCs from friends, from partners that live in the UK as well. So stuff like that. If there's maybe a little bit more notice, we'll get more of a turnout as well, which will be, again, a great thing to see.
We need more of that in esports in general, the more notice. And again, thanks for, this was a bit last minute. Thanks for waiting around for me and everything. And it's been a pleasure to speak with you both. And, thanks everyone for watching as well. I appreciate it. I'll turn this into an article and multiple clips. And I'll see you all soon. Give them a follow.